Hello, wildlings. I'm your Creepsmith, and you found my Fear Forge. Lucky you. Hey, wildlings. Being a social species, interactions with others of our kind are important to us. Necessary, even. Some folks say we go insane in isolation. Now, personally, I like being alone, and even people like me need somebody to bitch at. What happens then when there's no longer anyone else to interact with? Most of us wouldn't want to find out. Tonight's protagonist, however, finds himself in exactly that lonely circumstance in our terrible tale, Where Is Everyone? By RevBlackrage. Today started like every day. My phone started playing the song Johnny Cash Has Died at 3 a.m. Time to get up. My morning routine went normally. Roll over, kiss the wife who grumbles out her usual sleepy wishes of a good day at work and declarations of love. I return them, switching out a wish of a good day at work for a good day in the house with the kids. She goes back to sleep. I get up. I put on my flame-resistant work uniform. I brush my teeth while taking a piss. I didn't bother with shaving because it's the weekend and nobody who gives a shit about facial hair will be on site. I pour coffee into my mug, the one that proclaims, "Stay back 100 meters or you will be shot," in English and Arabic, and in tiny little print underneath, Camp Fallujah, Iraq. It's a relic from my glory days. I check on the boys, asleep in their beds. At least 2 hours yet to sleep before they had to get up for school. I check on the baby. She was still asleep. Twisted into one of those bizarre sleeping positions that infants somehow manage to roll into that you'll look at and just go, how the hell is that comfortable? I walk out of my garage, lighting a cigarette as I go, to the Ram 1500 sitting in my driveway. I stop for a moment as I open the door. It was quiet. Very quiet. There's a highway about 4 blocks from my house. Fairly major one. The kind that you can find yourself on sitting in a traffic jam at 1 in the morning. I had subconsciously gotten used to the noise of it over the past few years, my lower mind sifting it from the incoming data that my senses provide. But when the highway noise is no longer present, it sticks out like a pink house in a neighborhood full of beige houses. It was odd, but no cause for immediate concern. One of those things where you shrug and say, huh, and then you get on with your life. The 5.7-liter Hemi V8 sounded a lot louder than it usually was in the dead silence as I brought the truck to life. I plugged my phone into the Ram's stereo, pulled up an old episode of the god-awful 5-star podcast, and pulled out of my driveway. I wasn't really listening to the podcast, just using it as background noise. I am not a fan of quiet drives. I pulled out onto the main road of my neighborhood. A few blocks of big box stores, strip malls, and gas stations brings me to the highway. I noticed that the streets were completely empty, devoid of traffic. That wasn't too rare, though, at this time of morning, so I paid it no mind. Now, you have to go under the freeway to get to the northbound feeder road, which I take up onto the freeway. There's a 4-way stoplight before going under the overpass. Now, if you've ever been to a largish city, you know that homeless people are a constant. Any well-built underpass usually has a few of them living in it. Little camps that are usually nothing more than a shopping cart filled with random things. Few bags maybe, usually a few blankets and sleeping bags, sometimes a tarp or two. I noticed that a few of these little camps were present. However, the occupants weren't. This was nothing too concerning either, as they sometimes got rousted out by the police or the highway department. I pulled onto the freeway itself. Now this was where I started to get a weird feeling. Usually I shared my morning commute with the nighttime truckers and drunk drivers coming back from wherever drunk drivers come back from, but there wasn't another vehicle as far as I could see. Usually I see headlights or taillights in the distance, but I saw nothing. Alone in the world, I remember chuckling to myself. I kept waiting for another set of headlights to pop up in my mirrors, looking to the other side of the freeway as well, almost hoping to see something coming toward me. Never came. I took the tollway exit, moving through the easy tag line. I looked at the booth on the lane for people to pay with cash. I didn't see anyone in the booth, which was odd. They're usually always manned. I merged onto the tollway proper, breathed a sigh of relief as I saw the first movement of the morning. A shape trudging along the side of the tollway in the morning darkness. It looked like a man, in a dark hooded cloak like a monk would wear. He stopped and watched my truck drive by. I couldn't see a face in the hood. That hood was a void of darkness, and I felt my gaze drawn to it. I realized that I was slowly pulling my truck toward the side of the road as I watched the monk in the rearview mirror. I got pretty close to the Jersey barriers that line the side of the tollway before I realized what I was doing. "Oh, poop," I mumbled as I pulled the truck back into its lane and putting my attention back on the road. I mostly forgot the monk, as I live in a big city and people do weird shit in big cities. The rest of the drive to work was fairly uneventful, and I mean that literally. Absolutely nothing happened. No cars, no people. I even noticed that there weren't any plane signal lights crossing in the night sky. Weird, because there are 3 airports and an Air National Guard base in my city. I pulled into the parking lot of my work site. I was almost overjoyed to see cars in the parking lot. They all belonged to the graveyard shift workers. I parked and got out of the truck, looked up at the gate to my site. The lights were on in the security building, but I could see that no one was sitting behind the security desk through the big windows. There is always supposed to be someone in that office. I walked back to the area where the workers wait to get picked up and taken back to their respective sub-sites. I was the only one there. Now, shift change usually brings a crowd. I called my office to let the night crew know that I was there. No answer. No worries, they were probably still busy. Then I waited for 20 more minutes, calling back to my office several times, never getting an answer. I finally decided to walk back to my sub-site. Now, when you walk through an industrial site, there is always noise. Trucks moving around, people yelling, general tool noise in the background. But this morning, there was none of that. It was like walking through an industrial ghost town. The silence was getting to me. I was starting to go a little jittery. No sound. I dislike loud places when there is no sound. I jumped when I saw something crossing the road ahead of me. The movement in the dark stillness was like someone screaming BANG at the top of their lungs in a quiet study hall. It was Rocket, the half-tame raccoon that lived on site, out on his late-night search for food before retiring for the day. No trash can is safe from Rocket's search. Rocket stopped and looked at me before returning to trundling across the road. I took a deep breath and went walking towards my office and the sub-site that it sat on. I was yet again surprised to find no one there. Very strange, as we ran a 24-hour facility. I looked high and low, but I could find no trace of anyone in the office. I left and started walking to the site. I found the site's work truck next to one of our containment areas. It was idling and the door was half open. The interior light shining on an empty cab and no answers. I got into the pickup truck and drove back to the sub-site's office. Still nobody there. I was starting to panic at this point. Where the hell was everyone? I waited for another hour at work with no one showing up. I found a logbook. The last entry at midnight mentioning usual distortions on our security cameras. It was listing which cameras were showing the distortions when it abruptly stopped mid-word, like whoever was writing it had just said, hell with it. A thought occurred to me. That monk was the only thing that I had seen on the road, and it was heading back towards my part of town. The thought that my family might be in some sort of danger burned across my mind. I was out of my office as fast as I could move. I left the work truck at the site's gates, just like I found it, engine idling, door half open, light on. I was to my truck in a heartbeat. I floored it out of the parking lot, got back on the empty highway, pushing my truck as hard as it was go. I screamed and punched the steering wheel every time I hit 105 on the speedometer, because that's when the governor kicks in and it backs my speed down to a safer rate. The fear and frustration was making me irrational, and that made me angry. I passed the point where I had seen the monk. Part of me was planning to run him over if I saw him. I don't know why. He might have just been some crackhead out cosplaying, but part of me felt like that monk was connected to all this. I was cursing out the stupid cocksucker who'd invented automotive speed governors, and the stupid shitheel who thought to put one in a truck with an engine that held a reputation for going fast, when I realized that the radio was on. It wasn't Bluetoothed to my phone, and it wasn't on satellite radio mode either. It was playing regular old AM radio. It sounded like static, but I could hear something in it. Kind of like when you're listening to the radio and you leave one station's broadcast area and enter the edges of another. Faint ghosts in the white noise. I was only half listening to it when something else came on that must have had a little more juice in its transmission. I only caught every other word, most of it getting eaten by static. The voice sounded like, I don't know what. I had never heard anything like it before. I guess you could say it sort of sounded like white noise molded into words. Complete, souls, ran, do not fear, gather, night, dominance. My breath caught in my throat. As little information as that provided, it was enough to terrify me. I didn't know what I was going to find at home, and the anxiety of it was starting to make me physically ill. I took my exit, shot up the road to my neighborhood, running every red light that I came across. I left my truck running in the driveway, and I ran into my house. My empty house. No kids getting ready for school. No wife making Nutella toast for breakfast. No baby sleeping in her crib. I screamed, I cried, I punched holes in the wall. Please, not them, not my wife, not the kids. Please, no. I broke down, and I didn't stop sobbing until an hour or two later. My wife's SUV was in the driveway, but I made a half-hearted attempt to look for them. The kids' school, the grocery stores, strip malls, I searched all of them, didn't find a single soul anywhere. I lost my temper in the parking of a Target superstore. I grabbed the handgun that I keep in my truck, and I emptied the magazine into the front of that store. I grabbed the spare mag I keep in the glove box and emptied that into a Honda Civic parked near me. The gunshots sounded like bombs going off in the dead quiet of the morning, but no one came. After 15 minutes of pacing and screaming like a madman, begging the universe to send my family back to me and cursing the monk with every foul word I had, promising to rip his fucking face off with my bare hands, I collapsed. I sobbed with my face pressed into the concrete. This was not fair. Why had this happened? Where was my family? Where was everyone? Why did I have to be alone? Eventually I stopped crying. I think I was just out of tears at that point. I sat in the parking lot for what felt like a couple of hours just waiting for something to happen. But of course, nothing did. Then the words on the radio came back to me. One stuck out in my head. Night. They're coming back tonight to get the ones like me, ones they missed. I have to assume that there are more of us, otherwise, why would they be coming back? For one dude who's barely hanging on to his sanity? It'd be a waste of time. I'm sitting on my couch right now. I'm writing this in the hope that someone else will see it. I don't know if anyone will. The last thing I saw on Reddit was posted at 3:30 this morning. My Facebook feed is dead. The local channels are showing blank screens. I have my phone connected to my TV and I've been watching videos of my wife and kids. I miss their voices. I've spent most of the day cleaning shotguns and rifles, loading them and doing function checks on them. I don't know if I can kill one of those things, but I aim to try. I'm assuming there are a lot of them. Otherwise, how would you drain the world of people with only one monk? I'm under no illusions that I'm going to survive tonight. I don't know if they'll kill me or disappear me, but I'm planning on taking a couple of them with me. I hope to see my wife and kids again. Good night, and good luck. Okay, so maybe it wasn't total isolation, but you get the point. And somehow I don't think people snatchers are going to make good company. But what would any of us do in that situation? I hope you never have to find out. Stay scary, my wildlings. Appreciate those in your life while you still have them, and make the most of your nights.